How much time we have? Okay, thank you. Welcome to our Torah Tuesday class. Those of you here and those of you online, we welcome you. And let me open with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we ask that you give us eyes to see, ears to hear, Father, which you would have us see and hear and learn from your word. We thank you so much for your precious word that gives us life. We thank you, pray these things in Yeshua's name. Amen. So I don't exactly remember where we left off, but I'm going to start reading in chapter 7. We're in Genesis 7. And so we're going to be talking about the flood, Ha-Mebul. So chapter 7, verse 1. Then Yahuwah said to Noah, "Go into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. Take with you 7 pairs of all clean animals, or 7 of each kind of clean animal." So it was seven pairs, that'd be 14. I don't know if it's 14 or 7. Take your pick. The male and his mate, and a pair of the animals that are not clean, the male and his mate, and 7 pairs of the birds of the heavens also, male and female, to keep their offspring alive on the face of all the earth. For in 7 days I will send rain on the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and every living thing that I have made I will blot out from the face of the ground. And Noah did all that Yahuwah had commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the floodwaters came upon the earth. And Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him went into the ark to escape the waters of the flood, of clean animals and of animals that are not clean, and of birds and everything that creeps on the ground. 2 and 2, male and female, went into the ark with Noah, as God had commanded Noah. And after 7 days, the waters of the flood came upon the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of heaven were open. So basically, you got water coming up from below, and you got water coming down from above. And rain fell upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. So that's a pretty long rainstorm. I don't know if you've ever been in a big rain, but I was in Mississippi one time and it rained 7 days nonstop. And I thought, that's a lot of rain. So you can imagine raining 40 days continually nonstop. On the very same day, Noah and his sons, Shem and Ham and Japheth, and Noah's wives, and the 3 wives of his sons with them entered the ark, they and every beast according to its kind, and all the livestock according to their kinds, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth according to its kind, and every bird according to its kind, every winged creature. They went into the ark with Noah, 2 and 2 of all flesh, in which there was the breath of life. And those that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as God had commanded him, and Yahuwah shut him in. So, how did they close the door when they got in? They didn't, did they? Yahuwah shut them in. He shut the door. Just in time. The flood continued 40 days on the earth. The waters increased and bore up to the ark, and it rose high above the earth. The waters prevailed and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. So the tallest mountain is that Everest? 29,000 or so. That's a lot of water, I would say. That's pretty high. The waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep. So all the mountains were completely covered. And all flesh died and that moved on the earth, birds, livestock, beasts, all swarming creatures that swarm on the earth, and all mankind, everything on the dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life, died. He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens. They were blotted out from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those who were with him in the ark, and the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days. But God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the livestock that were with him in the ark. And God made a wind blow over the earth, and the waters subsided. The fountains of the deep and the windows of the heaven were closed, and the rain from the heavens were restrained, and the waters receded from the earth continually. At the end of 150 days, the waters had abated. And in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. So from the time that the flood started to this time, it was exactly 5 months. They went from the 2nd month on the 17th day. It rains for 40 days straight. But it says the waters still prevailed up to 150 days. That's 5 months. And that was the 7th month, the 17th day. The ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. And the waters continue to abate until the 10th month. So that's another 3 months that they're sitting in the ark. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, the tops of the mountains were seen. At the end of 40 days, which I presume is 40 days from that point, Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made and sent forth a raven. It went to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. So it doesn't say what happened to the raven. It went to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. Then he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters had subsided from the face of the ground. But the dove found no place to set her foot, and she returned to him to the ark, where the waters were still on the face of the whole earth. So he put out his hand, took her, and brought her into the ark with him. So I guess the dove was smarter than the raven, because he knew enough to come back. Maybe the raven, I don't know, maybe he found land somewhere. Maybe he sat on top of one of those mountains. He waited another 7 days, and again he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came back to him in the evening, and behold, in her mouth was a freshly plucked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the waters had subsided from the earth. So I was thinking when I was reading this, if they could see the tops of the mountains, how apparently he couldn't look out this window and see if the ground was dry or not. Maybe he could only look up and just maybe look up and see mountaintops or something. But by this point, when he sent out the dove, he knew that there must be land somewhere if he's bringing back an olive leaf. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. How rough were those seas while they're on the water, I wonder? You know, were they pitching and yawing and all that stuff? Yeah. Then he waited another 7 days and sent forth the dove, and she did not return to him any more. In the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried from off the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. In the second month, on the 28th day of the month, the earth had dried out. Then God said to Noah, "Go out from the ark, you and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing that is with you of all flesh, birds and animals and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, that they may swarm on the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth." So from the second month of the 17th day of the previous year to the second month, 27th day of the current year, so that's 1 year and 10 days that they were in this ark. So I think maybe they were a little stir crazy after a while. That's a pretty long time to be buttoned up like that. All the animals what? Oh. So we talked last week about, I kind of compared the Septuagint to the Masoretic text, the age differences. If you were to count the years in the Masoretic text, it would be 1,656 years from the day of creation to the start of the flood. If you were to count those years in the Septuagint, it's more like 2,256, difference of 600 years. So make of that what you will. Go ahead.
And not that and yeah, you can comment too if you want. But just because I know how long an age is, the 1,600 falls way short of an age, and the 2,200 is more accurate in that age time. So be interesting that would be this one age cycle. So pretty interesting thought.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I think even an age is probably more than 2,000. I think they put it at right around 2160. So 100 give or take. So continuing on, unless anybody had any comments. Pat?
Most of the translations that I have seen indicate from verse 1 and 7, the Lord said unto Noah, "Come into the ark."
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other translations say, "Go in." But there's another verse later on that implies that he came in with them and was with them. So if he's with them the whole time that they're in the ark, it would be considerably different than floating there by themselves and feeling alienated from him.
Meaning he was in the ark with them, is that what you're saying? Okay, yeah. Continuing on, verse 13. In the 601st year, in the first month, we read that there. Then God said to Noah, verse 15, go out from the ark, you and your wife, your sons, and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing that is it with you of all flesh, birds and animals and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, that they may swarm on the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. So Noah went out, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping thing, every bird, everything that moves on the earth went out by families from the ark. Then Noah built an altar to Yahuwah and took some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. So it says clean animals went in by sevens. Now I'm not sure because it says pairs if it's 14 or 7, but if it is 7, there's that one extra animal for a sacrifice. So then you still have 3 pairs. But if it's 7 pairs, then I guess yeah. More than 2 what? Doves, yeah, definitely, yeah. Doves are clean. There's still 6 there, yeah. So it just differentiates. With unclean animals, it was just 2, one of each, male and female. But generally when, we traditionally, like I know growing up in Christian churches, it's just like, it's almost a default answer is like 2 by 2, right? There's just 2 of every animal, but that is not actually the case. Go ahead, Mark.
You said the text didn't say the raven came back, but we know it had to have, otherwise there wouldn't be ravens today.
That's a good point.
Because
there's
only 2 ravens that came in the boat.
Quote the raven, nevermore. Nevermore I will see my spouse. But I guess you're right. They had to be joined up together at some point. I'm sure when, he let all the animals go, she went out looking for him and said, oh, you don't come back, huh? I got to come and find you. There you go.
Okay. If we go back to Genesis 7:1, it says they came in 2 by 2.
Right.
So they were in sort of military coming in. So for me, it would be obvious that it would be 7 pair.
Right.
Of each thing. Anyways, that's just a thought, maybe.
There's 1 pair of them.
And 1 pair of the unclean.
Right.
Because they're the trash collectors.
Yep. Well, in the Hebrew it says 7, 7, male and female. So I guess that means 7 of each, 7 male, 7 female. But they do add that footnote in this Bible, 7 of each, or 7 of each kind. So I would have no problem if it's that as opposed to just 7. But then Noah built an altar to Yahweh and took some of every clean animal, some of every clean bird, offered burnt offerings on the altar. And when Yahweh smelled the pleasing aroma, Yahweh said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of man, for the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I ever again strike down every living creature as I have done. While the earth remains, seedtime and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. So we have that every year, summer, fall, winter, spring, day and night, cold and heat, seedtime and harvest. It's been that way since this time. And Yahuwah blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the field and upon every bird of the heavens, upon everything that creeps on the ground and all the fish of the sea. So I wonder if before the flood, was there this fear the animals had of man? Because he's telling them, is that starting now? The fear and dread of all the animals will be on you, or was it different before the flood? I don't know. Go ahead, talk in the microphone. It takes a moment. There you go.
Okay. Do you look at outside books like Jubilees?
Yeah.
Okay. In the first part of Jubilees, it talks about when Adam and Hava fell, when they messed up. And it talks about the animals lost their language.
Oh.
So it's interesting.
At this time or at the fall?
When they fell.
Oh.
So, maybe this part is where the blood comes in. But he did the first sacrifice for them to cover, to atone for them when they realized they were naked without the light.
Right. That's interesting that you say that without light, because that's something we have been talking about in the previous weeks. The word for light and skin is pronounced the same, or they're spelled different, but it's an interesting idea. So he offers a sacrifice, and because as soon as he gets off the boat, he's offering burnt offerings to Yahweh, and it's a pleasing aroma. And because of the sacrifice that he made, he says in his heart that he's never again curse man in this manner. And God blessed Noah. I think I just read that. Verse 3. This is an interesting verse. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. So what do you think of that? Every living thing.
So I just wanted to mention, so we're taught and we learn that in everything that we do, we put him first. So he gets off the boat and he puts the Almighty first in presenting an offering. And I think that's why the blessing is God knew that in his heart, his first thought coming off was not for himself or his family, but was to present an offering to God. Yeah. So, but on the other thing, what was it again? It was the, I give you every living thing as food.
it says, every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. That's verse 3.
Yeah. So Noah knows that if I take one of these other ones, they cease to exist. So
right.
Can't be those.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think we've talked about this before, that food is only referring to the clean animal.
Right, right. So he probably knew the difference between clean and unclean. He knew he had only two unclean animals of one kind, but he had many to pick from of the clean ones. The unclean, just two. So go ahead.
He also says, I've given you this as I've given you the herbs in the garden. They didn't eat poison ivy and stickers.
Right. But up until this point, they weren't meat eaters. Apparently, neither were animals. All men and animals just ate the green stuff. And that up until this point, they didn't eat meat, neither man nor animal. It seems, anyways. Would you agree with that? Yeah. Right. And as I gave you the green plants, as you said, I give you everything. But you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, its blood. And for your lifeblood I will require a reckoning. From every beast I will require it, and from man. From his fellow man I will require a reckoning for the life of man. So he's talking about the shedding of blood. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For God made man in his own image. And you be fruitful and multiply, increase greatly on the earth and multiply on it. So he's reiterating that unlike Cain, who his blood wasn't shed, now the shedding of blood requires the person to die by the hands of man. Which, how do you guys feel about that? Basically talking about capital punishment, right? I mean, you believe we should have capital punishment? I know they still have it in Texas, but most places don't want to do it. Verse 8, then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, Behold, I establish my covenant with you and your offspring after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the livestock, every beast of the earth with you, as many as came out of the ark. It is for every beast of the earth. I establish my covenant with you, and never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood. And never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, This is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all future generations. I have set my bow in the clouds, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of flesh. So when you see the rainbow in the sky, you know that's a sign of his covenant. So did you know, though, that those rainbows, the colors, I believe purple is on the top, right? But that symbol's been usurped by the world to mean something different. But their symbol, they've reversed the colors. I don't know if you've ever noticed. The purple is on the bottom. And so they've taken what is a sacred sign or symbol or whatever, and perverted it basically how they pervert everything. So if you see that rainbow in the sky, you know that's Yahweh's covenant to us. That's not their symbol. They may think it is, but it's not. Verse 15. I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the water shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. God said to Noah, "This is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth." So I believe this is the first sign of a covenant. Unless I'm mistaken. Do you know for sure, Paul? Or? I can't hear you.
I was going to say the mark that was put on Cain, would that be some type of covenant that?
Yeah, I guess so.
So that would have been a different type of covenant also.
Yeah, a different sign.
Because it was his guarantee that no, he would not be destroyed off the face of the earth.
This sign is for all those going forward, us included. Go ahead, Lisa.
So me and Deborah Faye were kind of talking about this, but I did, when Polly was talking about the blood covenants and the seals, I kind of did a word study because I saw that there was possibly a connection between the first seal that's broken in Revelation and what we're talking about here with the covenant, because they both mention rainbow or bow. And I did a word search on what bow is. It's kashet in Hebrew. And I thought maybe rainbow didn't really have anything to do with the bow that's mentioned in the seal that's open, but apparently it does mean the same thing. It's anything that's curved. So rainbow is also the same thing as what's mentioned in Revelation, where it talks about a bow. So it's anything that's curved. A rainbow is curved. A war bow is also curved. So I just wonder if you were talking about how the rainbow has been usurped, and maybe perhaps this is Father's way of redeeming that covenant and making it what it really is supposed to be, and that is a covenant between him and mankind instead of it. I don't know. I was just kind of like doing my own little research, and I just thought it was a cool connection.
What'd you say that word was? Keshet? Keshet? Oh, okay. Any other comments? Pat?
I recently heard that the throne in the throne room in heaven is totally encircled by the rainbow. She's right. But
Interesting. Okay, going on, verse 18, unless anybody else has anything. Okay. Verse 18. Did you have a comment, Polly?
More to 4 through
4?
6
Verse
in
4
there
through
that,
6?
I think there's more being said to us in there than what we're reading on the surface. And I'd have to think about this and look at it a little bit more, but it could be covenant language, blood covenant language that's been violated. That there was a covenant established, it's been violated. Now, and this, I don't know, I'd have to think about it a little bit more, but I think there's some more in-depth things here that we're not seeing.
Mm-hmm.
So the word for search or require is darash, means I'm going to search out your lifeblood.
Mm.
So kind of interesting that darash, I'm going to darash your lifeblood. And so why is he searching out the blood?
Oh, and the require, you mean? The word for require? Is that what you said? Yeah, that's what it is. A darash. Yeah.
Can
go ahead.
also, in Polly, you might connect that with Cain and Abel when Cain was approached by the enemy, and he was told that sin was crouching at his door, but he had the authority. He had the authority to overrule, and he chose not to.
Right.
And so this could be doing something in line with that. We just have to dig a little closer.
So we were talking about this, Mark and I, a little earlier. If we're continuing to look at blood covenant and blood covenant language, we see it woven all throughout Scripture, even before this point.
Mm-hmm.
So Celeste's comment on sin crouching at the door, we're thinking that this is another way of saying this is a temptation to break the covenant. Temptation on your end to violate a covenant that the Most High made with mankind, which we see through Abel. We see that there's covenant language, and as Paul mentioned, there was a sign of a covenant upon Cain that the Most High made with him so that he would not be harmed. The Father was going to look after him even though things happened.
Right.
So if our thinking is correct that mankind had violated a covenant, sin was crouching at their door, and they violated a covenant with the Most High, with the exception of Noah and his family. And this is why Noah and his family were blessed and preserved. So it could be that this section here that I was mentioning is covenant language because it is making a statement that there's going to be an account of anyone that sheds blood. I mean, there's no one he can speak to here other than Noah and his family. Otherwise, I'm maybe not reading this correctly. So who is he saying this to? It looks like it's covenant language speaking to Noah, saying, if anyone should bring harm to you, I'm going to demand an account from them. And anyway, I just see more covenant language in here.
Yeah. Well, up until this point, they're not eating meat, so he's kind of giving them some guidelines that you don't eat the blood with the meat. Go ahead.
We need to remember that this book is one book.
Mm-hmm.
And this book was written in Hebrew by Hebrews to a Hebrew nation.
Right.
And that was Israel, the Father's people. And so he's explaining to us what his covenant is. And it's one of the things that really is a bother to him is when brother comes against brother.
That's a good point. Yeah. The first two brothers. Did you have a comment too? Go ahead.
When in the Hebrew, when he tells Cain that sin's crouching at his door, and then he says, and his desire is for you, that becomes a persona. It's not this sin. It's the one that's bringing the sin. But then he tells Cain, he says, but you know you rule over him. And that word is mashal in Hebrew, which when you search into it, the person is set to rule over a house is to rule in the image of whose house it is.
Right.
So the desire of the adversary was for Cain to mashal his house. In other words, he wanted him to be in his image instead of the image of the Father.
Right.
And and he's being told, "You stay in my image, and you will rule over him."
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, I kind of see when Adam, he instructed all his sons in the way they should go. Abel chose to follow. Cain chose not to follow, but he still had the same choice. He still had it within himself to make the correct choice. He just chose, like you say, he wanted to follow the house of the adversary. So any more comments? Lisa?
So going back a little further, verse 2 of chapter 9, what Polly was talking about, how there's maybe something more, and what Celesta was talking about, where it says, the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth. Prior to that, wasn't it the serpent that was capable of speech that went to Eve? And wasn't that the first covenant that was broken? So perhaps there's some kind of tie between that breaking of the covenant. Maybe there's something there with that too. I just thought that was a connection.
Maybe the first actual sign is the tree. I don't know. Could be. Okay. So, unless there's anything else, we'll continue reading. Verse 18. The sons of Noah who went forth from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from these the people of the whole earth were dispersed. For from these the whole earth was populated. Noah began to be a man of the soil, and he planted a vineyard. He drank of the wine and became drunk and lay uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, it's interesting how they make a point of noting more than once that Ham is the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and walked backward and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned backward, and they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Cain, a servant shall he be to his brothers." So it's interesting to note that this is the first time that Noah is recorded as speaking. But why do you suppose he cursed Canaan and not Ham? Ham's the one who did the deed. Why does he curse his son? You have thoughts on that?
See if it's going. Well, the statement, nakedness of the father, In Leviticus 18 and Leviticus 20 both, it says the nakedness of the father is his wife.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is the only other place in Scripture, you know, where this language is used. So basically, it means that Ham went into Noah's tent and was intimate with his wife.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the traditions say that the wife was not his mother, and others say that it was, you know, that it was in Zerah, the mother of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So if that's the case, Canaan is being presented as one of the sons of Noah. You know, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and then the son of Ham, Canaan.
Oh, yeah.
Because legally, if it came from his wife, it would be his son.
Right.
But then, and this is part of the reason I think that the Canaanites went down and usurped the promised land.
Right.
You know, you can see that there was 4 rivers that came out of Eden, and they're a metaphor or an allegory of all the sons of Noah that would cover the earth. So Noah was told, just like the others, that he was to populate the earth. He was to go forth and populate the earth. But if his wife was defiled, that wasn't possible. And so he couldn't have any more children. Then when he finally picked someone to be that, to take the place of that 4th born, the father picked Abraham. And the first place he takes him is to Canaan. He said, this land is going to be all yours. Right. Because Canaan had usurped the land that should have gone to the 4th born of Noah. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
That's the short of it, I guess you say.
That's the short of it. Yeah, I've heard that there's a lot of discussion and, you know, disagreement back and forth about is that the case where he actually had intimate relations? You're saying with his mother, right? With his mother, yeah. And people will go back and forth. I'm not really sure myself if that is the case, but I don't know. But it is an interesting thought.
Well, when he talks about the 4 rivers, he tells where 3 of the rivers go, which encompass the lands of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. But the 4th one, the Euphrates, it just says, and the Euphrates, because the 4th born of Noah didn't happen.
The 4th one?
Born of Noah didn't happen. You see what I mean?
The 4th one born of Noah?
Yeah, he didn't have a 4th born. He couldn't have a 4th born because his wife was defiled. The rivers.
Oh, okay. Oh,
you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the other 3 tell where those 3 went, but then the 4th born, it just says the Euphrates. It doesn't say where it went.
Okay, and that would represent Canaan.
Yes.
So
well, it would represent the one that should have been the 4th
wouldn't
born.
actually be a descendant of Noah.
Yeah.
It wasn't Canaan, it was the one that should have.
It's the one that should have been that wasn't. Yeah. And Canaan usurped the land of the 4th born. So when the father picked Abraham, he sent him straight down to say, this is your land. It's not Canaan's.
Right. Well, I do know, again, according to Jubilees, I guess, that the promised land was supposed to go to Arphaxad. And the Canaanites went in and took it over, even against the advice of Ham and his other brothers like Mitzrayim. You know, they said, we're going to do it anyways, and they did. Go ahead.
Even in light of what you're saying, now you have 2 examples of Canaan usurping the order and birthrights. So as Connor is pointing out, so what happened with Ham and his mom prevented the 4th son from being born. And so now God restores this by bringing in the children of Israel, taking the land back from Canaan.
Right.
And your story points to the same issue.
Yeah.
the usurping of what was supposed to be being reversed. So very interesting.
Yeah.
And if you can look backwards on that, Adam was told to care for the garden, till the garden, and guard it.
Uh-huh.
And he didn't guard it from the serpent coming in, so he basically left his wife uncovered.
Right.
So if you look at the wine, the excess of the wine, and Noah got drunk is the forbidden fruit, then it's the same thing. He left his wife uncovered, and then the evil came in.
Yeah. Yeah, you might say this story as it's written is very understated. There's probably more there than we... Yeah. But I would say that the line of Canaan is no more, that he's been done away with through being ousted out of the promised land, and then when David kind of finished the job. I don't know. Did you have a comment, Ward? You always see Ward standing back there. You know he's got something to say.
So earlier where it says that he was perfect in his generations, a lot of people interpret that to mean that he was morally perfect, but yet we see here that he wasn't morally perfect.
Yeah.
When he got intoxicated. So I don't think that's the correct interpretation of perfect in his generations. What do you think it is? What do you think that phrase means, perfect in his generations?
Usually when you see a word that is translated as perfect, like he tells Abraham, be perfect as I am perfect, it's, I think a better English translation would be blameless. It doesn't mean that you're perfect. It means that if you do something you shouldn't, you go and take the proper offering or whatever, and then you're blameless. To be perfect, there was only one that ever lived that was perfect in a human body, and that was Joshua, But he declares Job to be a perfect and upright man, but Job doesn't declare to be sinless. He says, are you going to count the sins of my youth against me? But Job did whatever he needed to do to rectify that. And so perfect in generations, I think, really just means that it wasn't corrupted by the angelic intervention. His blood, his DNA and bloodline was clean.
He didn't consort with the angels, so he protected himself in his DNA.
Noah, you mean?
But that doesn't mean that the wives of his sons were pure.
Yeah. Interesting. Go ahead.
On that topic, in Genesis 6:4, it says there were giants in the land. Then in Genesis 7:21 through 23, it says everybody that had breath in their nostrils got wiped out. But then we know that David fought Goliath, who was a giant. Where did that giant after the flood come from?
It's a good question. I don't know where he... Oh, I just want people online to know that we have two guests with us today, Connor and Celesta, and they're old friends of Mark and Polly. And Connor is a Torah teacher. Both you are, and so we're thankful that you're here. In case people are wondering who are making these comments, and that's who we have with us today. So, did you have another comment to make?
One of the things to consider is, this DNA, sometimes, just like we see today, there are character traits in children that doesn't even pop up for 2, 3, 4 generations. So every giant that was evidenced within visual that was huge and may have been wiped out, but what if in Noah's sons' wives if there was something being carried through their DNA that hadn't popped up. That's just a thought of a couple that I have. Ward has one that's even way different, but that's just a thought.
Yeah. There is even an idea that.
Well, that's one possibility for sure. But it appears that there's 3 rebellions of the angels. You know, there was Satan and whoever's with him then, and then the ones that came down on Mount Hermon.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's another group afterwards we see in Psalms 82, and they were set to be ministering angels and to be over the nation. And Psalms 82, he rebukes them because they haven't done what they were supposed to do. And then he says, you're going to die as men. So potentially the angelic thing could have continued through them also.
Yeah.
You know, but it's when it says there were giants then and after, I would kind of think that statement would lean more to that they must have come through one of the wives of the boys.
Right.
And we looked into the names once, Mark and I, and the wife of Ham. Her name didn't mean anything good. So that's one potential anyway.
Mm-hmm. So do you think there would have been a second incursion after the flood? That's a possibility too. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility because the Psalms 82 group is not the same as the ones that came down on the mountain.
Is that what you would say too, Ward?
Yeah, I agree with that. And there was also the possibility that the hybrids that were that could live underwater, they're going to survive the flood. And we know if the Apkula could come up on land, so there were as many that could come up on land. So that was a source of DNA for them. We know at Sodom and Gomorrah, after the War of the Kings, their foot soldiers were destroyed. They're giants. They're big guys. They weren't as big as before the flood, but they were big guys. But a lot of them got wiped out. So you have these fallen angels going to Sodom and Gomorrah because they were extremely corrupt cities to repopulate their foot soldiers. They needed more of them because so many had been wiped out. And of course, Yahweh, had to become a line in the sand that wasn't allowed. So, that's why they got bombarded.
And so this is why I have said, whenever there was man, woman, and child destroyed, and it puzzled me, and I looked it up and found out it was these 3 instances: before the flood, Sodom and Gomorrah, and when they came into the land of Canaan. And I realized that the reason God's wiping out the children as well as the women and the men is because the seed in all 3 instances had been corrupted.
Right.
No longer his creation. They were, as Ward would say, hybrids. So anyway, it wasn't God's plan and design of creation, and it had been morphed into something else.
Right. I've even heard that the Nephilim built their own ark. I don't know if that is the case, but they said, you're going to build an ark? We're going to build an ark. Anyways, let me finish reading to the end of the verse here, and then verse 26. And he also said, "Blessed be Yahuwah, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant." After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. All the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. So it's saying, let Canaan be his servant. That is no way endorsing any type of like people have actually used this to legitimize, is that how you say make legitimate the idea of slavery, which is not the case. I believe that the whole line of Cain was eventually done away with anyway, so Canaan, that is. I don't know if you agree with that, but he blesses Shem and Japheth, and saying, for Japheth, let him dwell in the tents of Shem. And it's interesting what that might mean. I'm not exactly sure if it means Shem or Japheth is going to take over Shem, as we kind of see the sons of Japheth kind of are the ones who are in control now. I don't know. Any ideas on that? Thoughts?
You know, that was the way it's supposed to be, but basically Shem has been ruling over and destroying Yaakov, you know, for ever since, I wouldn't say ever since this time, but
Yeah.
in the times from Yeshua forward, Japheth has been ruling over Shem.
He's been what?
Ruling over Shem.
Yeah. That's kind of what I think too. Go ahead.
I should have said it earlier. So Connor had mentioned that he and I had done a little word study on one of Noah's daughter-in-law's names, and you really need to look at it because just the meaning of her name gives opens your mind to the fact that it could have come through her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Through any one of the daughters, or just the one? Ham's in particular, you think?
It's, I don't remember exactly which one it was. It was a while back when we looked at that. But anyway, definitely that could have been where the line came through because Ham's firstborn was the one that Nimrod came through.
Cush, yeah.
So you know, there's an evil seed there as well,
Right.
as Canaan. Mitzrayim seems to be maybe the only one who really came out fairly clean.
Yeah. Well, it seems like Cush's line continued on too, regardless of Nimrod, but we'll look at them next week. So we're a little over, but that was an interesting discussion. Thank you for your comments. And so I'll pray and we can close. Father, thank you so much. Just really thought-provoking and interesting discussion today as we look into your word. Father, there's just so many things, especially when these first few chapters of Genesis. Father, we really we're so far removed from that world, and we really don't have a clue of what life was truly like back then, Father. But we know that you have been there from the very beginning and before, and that you are always there. You always have been, you are, and you always will be. And we thank you so much that you are our God, and you allow us to come before you and to worship you and to give you praise. We thank you. Pray all these things in Yeshua's name. Amen. Thank you, guys. Thank you online. And that's it.